Hello and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third annual OpenSimulator Community Conference. This year we have an exciting program lined up and with great keynote presentations, including the OpenSimulator Developer Panel, which we're about to kick off, along with other dynamic short presentations and panels that all take place today within our OpenSimulator keynote regions. The schedule also includes community and social events and plenty of OSCC Expo regions to explore over the weekend. And not to miss the Presenter Poster Expo area in the OSCC Expo Zone 3 and the Hypergrid Tour area in OSCC Expo Zone 2, which include many how-tos, resources, and scavenger hunt landmarks to interesting destinations where you can learn to Hypergrid visit throughout the OpenSimulator metaverse. We also have a special Hypergrid tour scheduled for tomorrow on Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And I want to extend a tremendous thank you to all of our speakers, sponsors, crowdfunders, volunteer staff, streaming team, and attendees at this year's OpenSimulator Community Conference. And as a reminder to our in-world and web audiences, you can view the full conference schedule at conference.opensimulator.org and tweet your questions or comments to @OpenSimCC with the hashtag OSCC15. This hour, we are happy to introduce a terrific session called Future of OpenSimulator, a conversation with the core developers. Our speakers on the panel are Krista Lopes, Melanie Millard, aka Melanie Thielker, Michael Circoni, aka Nebadon Azumi, Yubit Umarov, and Andrew Hellishanks, aka Kevin Cousins. I'm going to go through the bio of the folks on the couches, and then we'll kind of go from there. So starting with Melanie on the far end out. Melanie Millard is the founder of Avanation. As an OpenSim core developer, Melanie has been one of the most active contributors to virtual world software in general and OpenSimulator in particular. A long-time Second Life resident, she also gained much experience in using virtual worlds. Melanie has been involved in a number of virtual worlds projects and has created her own spin of the OpenSimulator software. Up to 12 developers have worked 2 years on creating the software, which now powers Avanation. Currently, Melanie holds the position of director in Avanation Virtual Limited, the UK-based company which operates Avanation. Melanie is known as Melanie Millard in both Avanation and Second Life. Next on the couches is Andrew Hellishanks, aka Kevin Cousins. Kevin Cousins is the tech manager for Virtual Highway, a member of the core developers team for OpenSimulator project, and has been contributing to various open source projects for over 20 years. Kevin has helped the OpenSimulator project for many, many years, both with patches and helping other people in OpenSimulator's IRC channels and elsewhere. He is an occasional contributor to the OpenSimulator wiki and is a maintainer of the add-on OpenSim Search and OpenSim Profile modules. Krista Lopes is a professor in the School of Information and Computer Sciences, all at the University of California, Irvine. Prior to being in academia, she worked at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center between 1995 and 2001. She's also a co-inventor of AOP, the Aspect-Oriented Programming, a programming technology featured in the MIT Technology Review in 2001, as one of the 10 emergent technologies that will change the world. She also is the creator of the Hypergrid protocol, which allows avatars to travel between Hypergrid-enabled OpenSimulator grids. Michael Circoni is a core developer for the OpenSimulator project and 3D content developer for Ancitra and 4Dialog. Michael has been involved with the OpenSimulator project since July of 2007 and is one of the original founders of OS Grid. His primary interest in OpenSimulator has been to improve the software by providing technical support and to foster communication between the core development team to debug and provide the most stable platform possible. And finally, Yubit Umarov is a member of the core developer team for the OpenSimulator project and a distinguished member of the community as well. So I'd like to go through and kind of get a quick ask of each of you on what your contributions to the OpenSimulator project are. So Melanie, it would be great to start with you if you want to talk about your contributions.
Certainly. You've already said some things in the bio that you gave to the people. All these things that we've done in Navigation. And by the way, the up to 12 developers that you mentioned, Ubit is one of them, who've been working on all that code. Well, all that code has just recently come to OpenSimulator. So if you download the current development version 090, and actually what you're getting is the code that runs on Navigation. We've worked nearly half a year on getting that integration going between the 2 years development that were done in OpenSimulator and the 2 years that were done in Avination independently. And it's been a right chore to get that in there. We're still working on it, actually.
Great. Thanks, Melanie. And now, Andrew Hellishanks, it would be great to get from you also some thoughts on what you've contributed to the OpenSimulator code base.
Yes, good morning. Yes, I've got quite a lot of different real-life projects and other things on my plate at all times usually, so my direct contributions in terms of the code base itself tends to be not as extensive as some of the other members of the core development team. I tend to go for some of what they call the low-hanging fruit, the simpler, more self-contained little sections of the project in terms of changes. Some of that has been some of the features that I feel were missing or that I would like to have in the other grid that I'm in for Virtual Highway. A lot of my contribution has been also just helping people through the IRC channels. I've also helped at times when some people were needed to help testing, such as with the load tests that we've had in the past, getting ready for this conference, or if there's been somebody asking, well, can you reproduce such and such a problem? And I've been trying to help in that area as well. One of the other things I've been doing that I've started was with this massive code that came from Avination, all those code changes that recently were into the master branch now. The file that summarizes all of the code changes, I've started going through that to try and see how we can start to summarize that and make it somewhat more digestible, because we're talking over almost 2,400 individual commits to code, so it's going to take some time to get through that and summarize all of those changes. I've already picked 2 changes that I've been using for Virtual Highway, since that's a couple of small useful features that I've had, but yeah, so I find other ways to help than mostly directly through the code, and just helping others mostly the time.
Thanks, Andrew. And next, Krista. Obviously, we all know that you are the developer of Hypergrid, which is a big contribution. But if you want to share to others what else, the other contributions that you've put into OpenSimulator Core as well.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many people here. This has been quite an interesting year for OpenSimulator for the project. There has been a lot of changes, as you probably have heard, or both in terms of the code that we, as Melanie said, we had this massive donation from Avination, but in terms of the people too, as you can see, this year Justin Clark Casey is not here, so I think we all miss him very much. But he, you know, for a number of reasons, had to pursue other directions for his work. But the good thing is that, well, Justin is not here, but we have a new core developer, Ubit, and that's the nice thing about open source projects, is that as long as people want them to exist, there will always be people coming and joining, and there's a, you know, even if there's a fair turnover of people, there's people coming in. So that's the exciting thing about working on these kinds of projects. So from the technical perspective, since Justin left, I have kind of took over the release cycle, and we made a new stable release about a month ago, 0.8.2, which I hope many people have upgraded already, and it's a good release. I am using it on my commercial grids So, yeah, that's about it. I'll be happy to talk about any of these things.
Great. Thanks, Krista. And next up is Michael Cerconi, which a lot of you probably know him as Nebadan Azumi. And it would be nice to hear about, obviously, the OpenSimulator project work that you do as well, Neb.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Sound great on the call.
Hello? You can hear me? Okay. So I am Michael Cerconi, Nebadan Azumi. Most of you probably know me from my work on OS Grid as a grid administrator there. Primarily for the OpenSimulator project, I kind of like Andrew, probably even more extreme. I'm not so much a programmer, but I do understand the code, and I do most of my work is debugging and finding problems and using my expertise of the knowledge of Second Life to make sure that things like scripting and physics and all the stuff functions the way it should. I do a lot of 3D modeling, and I provide a lot of content for OpenSimulator. For instance, I create all the sounds that you hear. When you hear the little typing sound, that's actually me typing on my keyboard, holding a little microphone. So a lot of the content and things like that I do, and a lot of heavy testing. We do a lot of big load testing here, and I manage most of the hardware. I manage the web server and some of the wiki stuff, and Jenkins, who does our code testing for us, and I manage the hardware here that the University of California has provided us for OCC. So I do all the updates here and manage this hardware. And I generally just provide support to the community when I can, and I try to interface with the developers. A lot of people are a bit intimidated or kind of afraid to approach the developers sometimes because they are not sure how to clearly describe their bug, or afraid they'll just get shot down. So I usually work very closely with people to try to ease that for them and get them through the process. That's about it. Keeping busy.
Great. Thanks, Mike. And last up on the couch is Ubit Umarov, and as I said, who's also a core developer. And Ubit, if you'd like to talk about what you contribute to the OpenSimulator project.
Hello, thanks. Most has been said already. I'm the new kid on the block, and I'm being very busy integrating the Aviation code contribution to the OpenSim software. Previously, I did work with Aviation doing development of this same software. Okay. Thanks.
Not the greatest conversationalist, maybe, but he's a hell of a coder.
Joyce, do you want us to kind of kick off some topics? Do you want to kick off some topics for us, or?
Did we lose Joyce?
Can you hear me? Sorry. Oh, sorry.
No. Yeah,
Here I am. Sorry. It would be great to have you guys talk about, obviously, a lot of you brought up that there have been a lot of changes. Maybe we can start the conversation there with talking about all those kind of new code commits and the changes to come.
Sure.
Well, as I said, there's been a huge number of changes, so large, actually, that we decided to use a new major version number. So OpenSimulator, as it is in the core repository right now, is actually 0.9. We're getting close to 1.0 here, folks. This code that we've brought in, it's lots of improvements under the hood, kind of improvements, lots of visible improvements, and a number of changes that just make things closer to the specification. Ubit's the one who's currently doing most of the integrating work, whereas I'm working on some new exciting stuff that you'll be hearing from us next year on. The current code is something that we would really like people to take out and test drive. So
yes. So one of the things that we're really excited that Melanie gave all this code to OpenSimulator. It's great. And the thing about very large contributions is that it tends to kind of rock the boat and the bigger the contributions, the more the boat rocks. So we kind of have to be careful. And this time I'm actually quite pleased with how the whole thing played out. So Melanie was ready to give this out in the summer. And so we started by taking the Avination donation on a branch. For those of you who are not very familiar with software development, we have these source control tools, and we can develop features sort of in parallel in these different branches. So we took a branch, and we first put the code from Avination there, and Ubit was the one who was kind of trying to harmonize the code that was in the master OpenSimulator with the code from Avination, and it worked there for about 6 or 7 weeks until there were the obvious big problems, and medium problems were kind of flushed out, and then eventually things were kind of looking stable enough within this rocking situation that we were able to merge it back, and this was done after the release. So I think that worked quite well, didn't you think? What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, we did a lot of testing, and I think there was a lot of folks on OS Grid who were really testing like every patch that went in, and it was a really good process. It was smooth, and Ubit was very responsive on fixing problems when they came up. I mean, it couldn't have gone any better, in my opinion.
Yeah, when you're dealing with a number of changes that came down and were put into the branch of code that was set aside specifically for dealing with this massive set of code changes, having a separate branch and putting it through its testing separately from what we had in master was really about the only way to really deal with it, to get the initial bugs and merge issues dealt with first, so that could be then ready to be put through its paces and start testing it before the code got merged into the master branch.
And so, I mean, I know, Andrew here has already said that we are still kind of distilling into a set of smaller things that we can say that what came from Avination. But one of the things that is coming, that is already in the master branch, is the ability to cross vehicles across simulators, which was missing from OpenSimulator. And a lot of people who do like sailing and cars and stuff like that probably will be quite pleased with this feature that comes from Avination. I don't know if there are other major ones, Melanie, if you remember off the top of your head.
Well, one thing that's always been asked in OpenSimulator, and nobody ever could do the implementation of because the original core code was just not really suited for it, is the avatar privacy thing. Hiding the avatars on a parcel, so that when you cam into someone else's parcel, you wouldn't see the avatars anymore and the prims and everything. You see the parcel as empty. That's part of the Avination merge, of course. You're not even aware of the feature, I take it?
I know, actually, I have heard, I've actually had some people in Virtual Highway ask me about that feature, so I know that they'll be happy to see that.
It's basically every social grid that needs the feature because, people just don't want to be spied on. It's just something that is actually inherent in people, and it's one of the reasons why everybody started hiding out in skyboxes. So at least you'd have to guess at the height to get to see them, and privacy just puts pay to that.
And I imagine too, on even on a professional use application, those who want to do meetings can do meeting rooms that way as well. So that's useful.
Precisely, because in the past, basically you'd have to have a private meeting in a private sim. And now you could actually have parcel-sized meeting rooms, and then people in one room will not interact with those in the next room in any way. They can't see them, they can't see them typing, they can't hear them speaking. So you can actually have privacy. You close the door, and you got a private meeting.
Great. I have another question. This time, actually, I'm going to call out UBIT on this. So, you guys are talking about, obviously, there was a lot of these sort of big changes with this merge. Now, what was it like, UBIT, to be kind of that middle person having to do the translation between the core and what Avination was working on? If you can chat on that.
Well, it was a funny process. What can I say?
But you don't know the half
Several
of it.
issues. Yeah.
We've worked
Several
for a
issues.
year on it. UBIT worked for a year on it before it even saw the light of day. UBIT, tell them about it. What all we did in private with Mr. Blue.
Oh, well, we did some integration of the var size regions. We were working on that when we decided to do the merge. And then there were some issues because we didn't use, for hypergriding, for example, in Avination. So our software had some problems relative to that. We also never used more than one region per instance, and we had issues with that also. So lots of fun.
Great. Yeah, no, I can imagine huge code changes in that way. I don't know if there's else that you want to bring up feature-wise beyond the privacy and other angle, like how this new code, what kind of new features that others can expect out of the new code.
Here's another little tidbit. Unscripted sitting. You sit on a prim and you'll sit the right way, you dangle your legs, you're not going to be sitting in the prim, you're not going to be upside down. UBODE, new ODE module, makes that possible.
Great. I look forward to sitting on other things easily. I'm sure, certainly for new users too as well, that makes interacting with objects a lot easier. And I know, Krista, that, and we'll get into this deeper in the viewer panel later, but I know you've also been doing a lot of thought on how to kind of make that new user experience and the interactions that take place in OpenSimulator easier. So I don't know if you want to chat any on that as well.
Yeah, I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in the viewer session, but I think it's no secret that I have become very interested on the viewer side of things. I think the viewer right now is what's sort of holding the whole system back. There's things that we could do a lot more, and a lot more interesting things, that if we had a viewer that would be more amenable to those kinds of expectations about the user interface. But we will talk more about that on the other panel. But there's no question, and I hope and I expect that a lot of the exciting developments from here on will actually include the viewer side. It's been great to work with some of the viewer developers, and I hope this continues and grows even stronger.
Oh, you don't know the half of it.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm actually working on a from scratch project.
Oh, news. Extra news. Tell us, Melanie, tell us.
Using a commercial game engine.
Oh.
I'm going to keep mum about the details for now.
Oh, you're just teasing us. Come on.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, I'm teasing you.
Maybe
just a teaser.
Maybe you can beg Mal to be on the viewer panel if you want to chat more on
we'll
that.
force you. We'll pin you down on the couch.
You don't have a pin that size.
So, I don't know if there's any other things that you guys want to talk about. I mean, obviously, a lot the folks that come to the OpenSimulator conference vary widely, right? We have end user folks who are interested in some of those changes, like you were talking about, Melanie. And then we have a lot of people who are kind of in the middle, trying to develop content and create spaces. And then obviously those in the back end who are implementing, the actual server software. So, anything that you want to talk about in regards to either changes or things that you think are important to speak to, so some of those people that are actually running their own grids and working on those things.
I'd like to just add that there's a few developers that couldn't make it today. Would be Robert. Robert's here, but he didn't have the time to speak. He didn't have the time to really prepare. He's out in the audience. But Robert Adams, who does a lot of the physics bullet sim stuff. We also have Oren Hurwitz from Kitely, who are doing some pretty cool things with OpenSimulator and the Kitely grid. And also Alicia Richardson, Alicia Raven from Spellcraft Grid, Spellscape, I think, actually, who does some really cool, like, role play and programming HUDs and things like that. So I just wanted to mention them, and not to mention all the other people who are not core developers who are submitting patches and fixes. And we've gotten a ton of that this year, and it's been really good to see people showing interest in fixing the low-hanging bugs and things that are getting on their nerves.
Yeah, let me say that. So open source tends to be a little bit sort of a difficult place to operate. Sometimes we come out as really nasty people. And sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not intentional. Some people are naturally nasty sometimes. But the whole thing is that we really appreciate people wanting to improve the code and improve the quality of the code. We really, really appreciate that. And so much so that what may come off as kind of not nice is just too much of a focus on what's in the code patch and completely ignoring the person who created that patch. So it comes off as really nasty. So apologies in advance for what's going to happen already in this next year, because this will continue to happen very likely. But I just want everybody to know that we really, really appreciate, and the feedback is usually just focus on the code and without any kind of social padding. So that's why it comes out as sometimes a little nasty. But the goal is to get that patch to kind of conform with our expectations, and because there's many moving parts when you go into contribute to a project like OpenSim. It's so complex that sometimes you think that you're fixing one thing and you're actually interfering with something else. And only some of us who have been here for a while and who know the code very well actually at least cannot predict 100% all the interference that's going to happen, but at least we can predict probably 70% of the interference. And so that's sort of what the feedback is towards that, is that you can't do this because blah, or you should do that because blah, and then sometimes it comes a little nasty, but that's just a matter of ignore the tone and just focus on what's being said. We really appreciate the contributions.
Yeah, a lot of that evilness comes from me, actually.
That's right, Melanie.
I'm probably known as Mantis evil bitch because I'm the one who tells everybody their code doesn't conform to our guidelines, and change the code, and don't do the huge patches with functionality and white space corrections and so on and so forth. Yeah. Read about it on the Mantis. It's all there for everyone to see, but it's just it's our way to get the project moving in the right direction and keep forward momentum.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I even had a single. I thought I was doing a one-line change to the code one time, and I thought, okay, that's going to be relatively safe, and found out that no, supposedly that had some other side effect that I perhaps wasn't aware of. So it really does sometimes take people that know the code well to know sometimes whether a particular change is going to fix a problem or possibly cause others. And regarding the contribution from the other users of OpenSimulator, we also, of course, appreciate all those people that report bugs to us, because as the core developers and those that are on the that are available on the IRC channel, the other users that are on that channel, we get a lot of feedback, and we do as much as we can to test out the code. But again, there's so many features and so many aspects to the code that we can't test everything, and things can slip through the cracks. So we really appreciate hearing from people when bugs are found, and then we do our best, of course, to address those as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and so I mean, open source is a kind of funny thing because we are sort of doing this in the open for free. We are donating our time. But it's not like we are a charity, right? Everybody here is doing this because we ourselves have our own plans and our own offshoots of something related to OpenSimulator that we are doing. So we are doing it in the open because it's a very nice way of getting a great engineering team together in a way that individually none of us would probably have the resources to do. So we help each other in this way. But also we are very busy people. I talk for myself, I don't know, but I'm sure that everybody here is super busy. And so sometimes we just don't have time to respond. Sometimes, at the end of some bad day, we just snap out. So there's all sorts of things that happen that people need to be aware that. But we are normal people. We are approachable in general. It's just that, but I want to be just know that sometimes some of the interactions that happen over the mantis and the mailing list can come off as kind of unpleasant, but they're, apologies in advance.
And like I was saying before too, my role for the project is kind of to interface with the users on behalf of the developers, and that's really the main reason I am a core developer. So if you feel like your mantis or bug report is sitting and nobody's paying attention, you just let me know, and I'll try to stir the pot a little and try to find out what's going on and maybe give you a better reason on why no one's looking at it. So don't get frustrated, just be patient and try to work with us, and we'll certainly do our best. But just because no one's looking at it doesn't mean we don't care. It just means there's not time usually, or maybe no one's been alerted to it too. So that's kind of
Yeah, but with every open source project, as was said already, we have our own agendas, our own uses for the software, and we're working towards our own goals and fixing the things that pop up for everyone else because it benefits us and the entire community. So like Krista fixes something on the hypergrid, I fix something on appearance, and we both benefit. Everybody else also benefits. But sometimes, and I really do want to put this out there for everyone, sometimes we get people who say, I want this feature X. And I say, we would definitely be interested in having that in core. Patches are welcome. And then it says, no, I want this feature X. And I say, why? What do you mean you want this feature X? Code it for me. WTF?
Right.
I mean, it's like,
that doesn't
pay
work.
me.
Right. That doesn't really work because I think it's important to understand that we are doing this for free, as I said, because it's a way for ourselves to get this great engineering team together that in a way that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. But we do it because we want to do it and we have our reasons to do it. And it's great that everybody can benefit. And I hope people are doing it and contributing because they also want their own, they have their own reasons for contributing. I think everybody should have good reasons for contributing. So it's sort of we don't do sort of code on demand. It has to be something that we want to do.
Yeah, basically, if somebody wants feature X, they can either pay someone here to do it for them. They can pay a third person to do it for them. Then they can donate it, or they can keep it for themselves. Or they can do it themselves and learn the code base and maybe become a part of this team.
Mm-hmm.
We are the core team, but there's a huge number of people, well-known or less well-known, who are our contributors, and we couldn't go without them.
Yep, that's correct.
Right.
And I have, I sort of threw it out to the audience to start getting some questions in too for you guys. This kind of dovetails off of that, and it also sort of dovetails with the conversation Neb and I had too about getting involved. But Bill Glover, who's product manager for virtual worlds at Frame and Bright Canopy, he asked what the greatest need is right now in the OpenSim open source project. Is it like documentation, coders, content, hosting? What's your need? And I imagine the follow-up to that is how to get in touch with you guys with that too and get started.
Documentation is one of those things that always isn't. We're always in need of documentation and the people to do that. Part of the problem with open source projects, especially something as big as OpenSimulator, is there's so much code work to be done that the documentation sometimes gets left behind, and we almost need some other people sometimes who can help us with the documentation.
Yeah. A lot of times,
Yeah.
by the time we get finished documenting something, the code has changed, and the documentation is no longer valid anymore. So it's a vicious cycle. Sure. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I think there's lots of things that that just get low priority. So documentation is one of them. I think eventually we'll get to a point where it will become possible, because what has happened so far is that the project, the architecture itself has been sort of evolving, and when you're still in that phase, you document something and then you make a change in the code, and suddenly the documentation is not, it's just wrong, and that's worse than not existing. Being wrong is worse than not being there. So, but I think that we are getting to a point now that there's some things of the code that are pretty stable, and we can already start kind of explaining how things work a little better. But the other thing thank you for that question, and I'm very glad to see people from Bright Canopy here. That's a great thing that you're doing there. I really love it. So it's very clear, as I said, that one of the things that we could take this to the next level by working on a viewer side that would be, that would do things slightly different in terms of the UI. That will require also changes on the server side to support those new features, but I hope that will happen.
Yeah, somebody's asking about how they can contribute to the documentation. We do have there has been the OpenSimulator wiki that exists, and that I'm not sure if that's still open to everybody to sign up and create an account on that wiki, and then they can make changes or update things. The other way, I suppose, if it came to it, would be to make notes through attachments to a Mantis, perhaps, if there was a particular bit of information or documentation that they wanted to add. One of the documents, of course, that would be nice to have, but is hard to do at this point with the code still being a bit in flux, is ultimately to have a document that begins to kind of give an overview of how everything in the code works, to make it easier for new people to come along and begin to get involved in, fixing things or adding to the code base.
Yeah, I mean, so the wiki is something interesting. So if somebody would like to do that, that would be great. Somebody or many people, actually, it's a many people job. The wiki is littered with outdated information and things that no longer exist, and everything. I don't know, I've never done a study, but my gut feeling is that there's about 40% of stuff on the wiki that's just not correct.
Yes, it's either outdated, it's wrong, or it refers to code that has been removed. I'm aware of that because I've actually been looking at it. I'm working on a remake of the OpenSimulator website, which will feature for the first time a section with curated documents that are being kept up to date by the team rather than by the community.
Right. So, I mean, so one thing that you could do on the wiki is to kind of go through, if you have nothing, one day that you find yourself with nothing to do, go through some of the pages of the wiki and come to the IRC and just bug Nebadon, for example, about whether that's still correct or that's not correct, and just, either put a big red warning on top, this is not correct, or something like that. That would be helpful.
That's kind of
we
what
probably need these Wikipedia style tags that cause these sections like this is out of date, this needs clean up, this needs references to be inserted in the page.
One problem we have with the wiki too is that it's been under constant barrage by advertising bot networks. And I've been battling this for months, and so this is actually what prompted Melanie to start a redesign of the front end, because we need better security that the wiki just doesn't offer, and we just don't have the community attending the wiki to do to treat it like Wikipedia does, where Wikipedia, you know, they have thousands of people that are, you know, you make a change and 50 people see it within 5 minutes.
Yeah, but they got millions of pages too.
Yeah, so we're working on it. You may find that changing the wiki is not so easy right now. We don't allow any attachment uploads. We had to turn a lot of things off, and then to keep the server from getting completely clobbered. And we're working on bringing it all back, but just be patient with us. It's going to take us a little bit of time, and we're working on a cool redesign though that I think everyone will enjoy and like much better.
Yeah, some of the documentation or information on the wiki has been flagged. Some pages are flagged or marked as saying, "Here's what was at one time the most current version, and then here's a version from, say, well, I know some stuff was flagged as 069, which is really ancient, but at least some parts are kind of noted as being for the, you know, here's the current one that was done at the last time this page was updated, and here's the previous version." So there is also a little bit of history there. But yeah, that's a big job, and also even just trying to figure out how to structure the information to be so things can be found. There's a bunch of information that's in the wiki, but it isn't always easy to discover it from other pages. So even kind of indexing it's a big job in itself.
Joyce,
Well,
once
once Kevin's done with the release notes for 090, maybe that's a job for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know that what it is a challenge with any any community effort, like, you know, to kind of keep that information up to date. So to be clear too, I mean, for those asking as well, like opensimulator.org is obviously the main URL, and the wiki, it redirects to the wiki content there. So that's where you can start to find that. I know there's obviously the dev IRC and the email list in your GitHub code pages as well, for places where people can find info.
Actually, Joyce, let me just say
Sure.
something related to the IRC. So this project works a lot on the IRC, and for those who don't know, that's the Internet Relay Chat. It's a collection of several tens of thousands chat rooms out there on the internet, and open source projects tend to use them quite a lot because this is people who are distributed all over the world, and so this is sort of the meeting room, and this is our meeting room definitely. So it's on Freenode, OpenSim-dev, and just OpenSim, which is, so it's like sort of the users channel and the developers channel, so that we are almost always there.
But you need to know one thing. If you've never been on the IRC, it's called the Internet Relay Chat, but we say it's the idle relay chat because everybody's
Yes.
just sitting in the channel idling. You ask a question, please stay logged into the channel. You will get an answer. It might be 16 hours later because we're all on different day and night cycles, and we always read the scroll back and answer to those people who are still there. So get idling.
Right. It's a very bizarre experience for people who don't know IRC. You just go into a room, there seems to be a lot of people signed up and nothing is going on, right? No chat, no anything. But so, and the best way of getting your answer, your question answered, is to just ask the question. Not if you start saying, "Is anyone here?" Nobody will reply to that.
IRC rules. Don't ask to ask, just ask.
Just ask. And
Yes.
if there's one person in particular that you want the answer from, if you already know, then add that name, because what happens is that if you put some person's name, then that person usually has the client configured so that it flashes if the name is mentioned, so you will get people's attention even if it's several hours later.
Great. In regards to that too, another question for the devs from Shin Engine, who's talking about sort of the GitHub, the Git code right now seems a bit kind of unfriendly at the moment. And when will the changes that you're making to the branches now not have version conflicts?
Version conflicts? Could you please specify?
Let's see if we can get some more info.
Difference between, I know there's like trouble going from like 075 to 09, you get cut off, so maybe that's kind of what they're
Right.
Well,
So
obviously 075
yeah.
is ancient.
right.
Well, it's
So
069 is ancient.
Yeah.
Right. So
They're already
we-
Oh yeah, yeah.
strive for backwards compatibility, but not like all the way to the beginning of time. So I think my rule of thumb is that every version should be compatible with 2 versions before. But the version 3 before, we just cannot support that kind of backwards compatibility. So we give people 2 releases to kind of catch up, and I think that's fair. I mean, we have been making on an average like of 2 releases a year. So that's sort of our rule of thumb here.
Like take this current release cycle, for instance. The 0.8.2 release is still able to connect with an 0.6.9, but the 0.9.0, the earliest it will connect to will be 0.7 something. 0.6 will be dropped from it. So that's how we do it. You basically you can be good half year behind, and on the safe side, you're running stable code and don't have to deal with bleeding edge, and you can be sure that you're connecting to the entire network. If you get a year and a half behind, then you'll be getting cut off. So you don't need to run the bleeding edge.
In
There's
fact,
no
you shouldn't.
requirement to do that. Unless you're actually trying to help us and test and code things. You shouldn't be running the bleeding edge. You should be running the latest stable release. At this moment, this is 0.8.2. It will be 0.8.2.1 because of a minor bug that's gotten in. And then that release will be the release to run for the next 6 months unless you're actively trying to help debug, test, develop, or document.
Live on OS Grid.
Yeah. Well, OS Grid is kind of a test, is made as a testing, initial testing anyway. So let's, kind of move it away to sort of from how to contribute to a couple of more other questions. So Cyber Serenity Vela asks that she has a grid, so she runs a grid, and she's having it's sort of terrible to update her servers. Any better update software? So I guess making it easier for for those running their own servers to be able to update easier.
Well, there's really no easy way to update because when you have multiple servers, you have to update. Now, I can tell you what Avination does. Avination, which is a largish grid, as grids go, uses a database to store the information for the ini files. And it uses a central compile server and distributes just the binaries. And Avination keeps only 1 copy of the binaries on each server. And that makes updating a lot easier. It's as easy as running a script. Obviously, it always still means manually compiling, running up on a test system, testing integration and everything when a version change comes. And that is something that we really, we can't take that workload off the grids because each grid is different and they're meant to be.
Yes, I mean, upgrading software is always a problem, right? For every software, and software that involves many physical or virtual servers, it's even each person needs to figure out what to do. I also run a relatively large grid, and that one, it's completely different from Avination because that one, on purpose and by requirement, certain servers are in certain versions and certain servers may be on other versions because of a number of the characteristics of that particular project. And so each person needs to figure out what is it that works for them and do the tooling necessary to address their needs. This is outside of the scope of OpenSimulator.
Yeah, I was going to say though,
that's
the best place to get advice on that kind of stuff would be the IRC channel because there's a lot of people there who have experience updating and have things very automated, so you can get a lot of good pointers and tips there. And we have several channels. We have just the OpenSim channel, and then we have an OpenSim-dev channel. And all that information is available on the front page of the website, opensimulator.org. If you just scroll down to the bottom, you'll see ways to join email lists and get into the IRC channels and all the different ways you can communicate and report bugs and stuff like that. So,
I was involved in with a grid called Avatar Hangout back in the days of 069, and at that time, we were just running individual processes. Like each region was a separate thing, and so to update it meant having to copy the updated binaries multiple times to multiple directories. Of course, that is certainly a way of doing it, but of course that's when your grid starts to grow, you very quickly find that just doesn't scale very well. There's with Virtual Highway now, we have a proprietary program that we use that basically has a database that has information about all the regions that we run, and it generates all of the INI files and does all the copying of code and everything that we need to set up and to maintain our grid. Of course, the other thing that helping somebody with a small grid these days, there are command line options to the program that allow you to actually have one directory containing the actual OpenSimulator code and use separate directories that would be for each of your actual regions that you're running, so that the separate directories would then, for each region, would be able to contain the log file for that region and perhaps an INI file that may be unique for that region. That basically would allow you to essentially have one place that you would update the OpenSimulator code that you're using, and then you would just basically restart everything, and it would just pick up just from that updated directory that contains the OpenSimulator code. That can make things a lot easier for people, short of actually having custom solutions to otherwise manage the grid.
Thanks. I have a couple of really quick, more like feature questions, and obviously we've just got like about 3-4 minutes left. So these are probably going to be, I think they're going to be Melanie quick questions, and they're probably going to be a yes or no. The first one was regarding the parcel privacy feature that you mentioned, Melanie. And you might have to mute yourself, Andrew, for a second. Will the grid owner and or administrators be able to, will the grid owners and or administrators be able to override this, and will there be any safeguards built into code to maintain full confidentiality?
The safeguards in the code are such that the information about the avatars that are setting the privacy isn't even sent to viewers. So yes, there is no way for a normal user to spy on another user. And there is an option for grid administrators to go into God mode, and that will override the privacy. But it will also let the people whose privacy is being overridden see that the privacy has been overridden.
Great. And another quick one too, is avatar ability to push gone in the new code?
Pardon?
Avatar ability to push, I guess. So object push or avatar push. I guess they're just asking about avatar push.
Well, as far as I understand, pushing is working unless the no pushing option is set.
Okay.
But everybody sets no push these days.
Yeah.
Because it prevents orbiting.
Yes, to limit griefing and other things like that. So, I think we're I don't know if you guys have any final comments or thoughts, before we wrap up, because we have about another minute or two left.
Just thanks everybody for coming, and I'm really happy so many people showed up, and that, we were fortunate enough to have a nice stable keynote this morning, and very good. Everything's looking great. Thanks to all the developers for the really good fixes and this really great release. I'd have to say, best release yet.
Right. And, I'm sure I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts, but lots of people I'm sure are looking forward to the changes in the future of OpenSimulator and how this evolves over time. And we didn't even touch upon, with changes in software, like if Second Life goes away, or questions like that. So there's so much more that can be talked about in regards to the kind of independent and vibrant future of OpenSimulator. And I know we do have there's a developer Q&A at 11:15 a.m. So that'll give a chance we didn't get to all the questions. So anybody else who has questions, who's either part of the VIP or who has been helping out, or staff-wise or a presenter, is able to attend to that. One kind of final comment that wasn't really a question, but Isis Ophelia just wanted to say, as an end user, with seldom the chance to meet all the devs together. that she'd like to say thank you for the hard work for giving us a platform where users can live their creativity, develop their projects, and share them with many others. Thank you, devs. So,
Thank you.
So great to see the love.
Yes, thank you.
And obviously we have we have like a really packed schedule today. So, I'd like to thank all of you for on the panel today. And, like I said, others will get a chance to ask questions later at the Q&A. And of course, I'm sure the devs will be around during the course of the day off and on anyway. And as a reminder for the audience, obviously you can see what's coming up next on the conference schedule at conference.opensimulator.org. And following this session, we have, it will be the Port Your OS build to stereoscopic viewers for Oculus Rift and Google Cardboard. So that hints a little maybe at some of the Melanie stuff as well. And hopefully, Melanie, you can jump in on the viewer panel at noon if you're around to talk about your maybe future things as well. And we encourage you attendees to visit the OSCC Poster Expo in the OSCC Expo 3 region, and again and also the Hypergrid tour resources in the OSCC Expo 2 regions. And when you can during the breaks too, obviously explore all the OSCC Expo regions and all the crowdfunders and sponsors booths there. So thank you again, everybody on the Open Simulator core team that are here today, and those out in the audience as well. So thank you guys for being here and for creating such a wonderful platform. And everybody else, we hope you enjoy the conference program as we go, and we look forward to see you in World and on the web today. So thanks.
Joyce, let me just say thank you so much for jumping in and organizing this conference this year. It's really great. We couldn't just do the community conference ourselves. I think it's great that you took over and that people in the community take over this. That's absolutely wonderful. That's exactly what we want. So thanks for jumping in and putting up such a great event.
Oh, thank you. And I encourage others to get involved as well. Obviously, I think, as you guys were saying earlier, the power in kind of gluing all these community things and interacting with the devs is a key thing, I think. So thank you all. So we're going to stop the call here, and then in a couple minutes we'll be up with the next presentation. So thank you all.